Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name's David. I'm one of the team members here at A2X, and today we're going to be running through a demo webinar of A2X focused for our accounting and bookkeeping partner community. And we're going to start just with a couple of slides to cover what the partner program is all about, talk about A2X, and then from here we'll dive into the product, run you guys through some functionality pieces. And we'll wrap up again with kind of a call to action for next steps if anyone's interested in diving a little bit deeper. So, as mentioned, my name is David. I'm one of the account executives here at A2X. My job, 5 days a week, is to be in front of new potential customers. So, I talk with sellers, I talk with accountants, I talk with bookkeepers to try and find a way to kind of automate and save a bunch of time on the ongoing e-commerce accounting. I'm based out of Toronto, Canada, but we're a global team of 75 plus people all over the globe. So, no matter where you are, we have local support, which is fantastic. Speaking of a global community, I wanted to start by shouting out just a little bit about the A2X Partner Program. This is the community we build for accounting, bookkeeping partners, fractional CFOs, agencies that support e-com sellers. We want to be really the place you think of when it comes to leaning out for resources, support, being in a community full of like-minded folks, all trying to solve the same problem. So the partner community is fantastic here at A2X. I think at last count, we were somewhere in the 1,500 partner range, which is amazing. I want to kick off by talking about a couple of the perks of our partner program because that informs a little bit of the support and setup workflow that usually comes out of these calls. And I just want to start out by saying our partner program is totally free. There's zero cost to you to join. And so some of these initial perks I'm going to shout out here as we look at what we would call a community level partner as you consider bringing your first couple of clients over to A2X. No matter what plan fit they end up being in, this is where we're going to automatically, from the very beginning, roll out free one-to-one onboarding. Ongoing unlimited training is needed for you and your team. Ongoing, obviously, partner certification courses. We have a course available now that's fantastic. Priority support, access to some great kind of office hours and back office calls and resources, everything down to some marketing guides, and obviously a little bit of a partner tier badge you can toss up on your website. So this kind of first tier is all about making sure that you guys are bringing your first clients onto A2X. You have all the support in the world needed to get them up and running successfully, feel really confident, and then begin to train up the rest of your team and anyone else supporting you on A2X. And as hopefully your list of clients grows and you niche up in ecom and you really enjoy that process, as you get into some of these higher tiers, you can see things like listings on our directory become available, partnership announcements from us through social media. And then at the very bottom, there are eventually some discounts that can apply. The only difference with these discounts is it comes down to how you want to structure billing. We're happiest either way if the client wants to pay or if you guys, as their accounting bookkeeping firm, want to take on the cost of the subscription. If you do that second option, that's where we then start to price in some great things like discounts. So lots more on the partner program as we wrap up today, but I just wanted to shout out strong one-to-one support, one-to-one onboarding, tons of training as you guys look to dive into this world of A2X ecom for the first time. And of course, our goal, once you hit that 5 client threshold and we can kind of get you listed on our accountant directory, is to drive more business your way. So we have a fantastic section on our website at the very top for businesses, find an accountant or bookkeeper. And our goal, of course, would be to have you guys registered there after you bring on a couple of clients and start driving some more business your way, which is fantastic. All right, pivoting back to the A2X core product for a little bit. Our job is to help you automate payout reconciliation. So our tool is going to sit in between a selling channel and an accounting solution to automate the postings of either journal entries for QBO or invoices for Xero to make that reconciliation process a lot easier. So you can keep us in mind for clients that you guys are working with that sell on Amazon, Shopify, eBay, Etsy, Walmart, as well as PayPal. Those are all of the native selling channels we can connect with. And on the accounting side, think QuickBooks Online, Xero, NetSuite, which is an ERP tool. There's some Sage support for UK folks. And then we can manually export for QuickBooks Desktop and other solutions like that. But if you think about what A2X is here to help with, we're in the game of reconciling payouts. So, as an example here, Shopify in front of us, what you'll realize with Shopify clients is they get paid out every single day, but these payouts span 3 and 4 day date ranges quite often. So, what A2X is doing for every single payout that comes through, we're basically installed as an app inside of the selling channel. So, in this case, Shopify. For every payout, we're then pulling this data file, and this data file breaks down all the raw orders and all the raw transaction data from those orders inside of each payout. So it's A2X then combing through that data and looking at those thousands of lines of transaction level information that then lets us deliver something like this, where we can see for this $15,000 payment that's come through, we can actually recognize this in sales, what we've collected in shipping, taxes, fees, refunds, returns, etc. We can kind of paint that full financial picture. And then, really important, because this net deposit is our North Star, we're then pushing across that matching entry to one click reconcile in the bank feed. So that's kind of the world we live in, right? We're not a connector tool that's going to push individual orders. We're not populating customer information in QuickBooks. We are keeping these entries at a summary level, super detailed, super accurate, to make sure we can support a seller doing 100 orders a month, 1,000 orders a month, a million orders a month, believe it or not. So the other side of this coin, of course, would be Amazon. They're kind of the other big player in this space. And again, we're doing the exact same thing across all of these selling channels. It all comes down to capturing that data file off of the selling channel. With channels like Amazon, where you can have sellers using FBA fulfilled by Amazon, there's a whole whack of fees, reimbursements. The entries tend to be a little bit thicker, a little bit more complex, but it's no problem for us. We've been doing this for 15 plus years, and we've gotten pretty great at it. So if you think about what we're doing, we capture that data file for every payout, we crunch all of that raw information. So the next question becomes, great, talk to me about how we're going to organize this. So we'll dive into the product here in a little bit, and I'll show you how we can separate out the transaction types, map them to destination accounts to customize and deliver a P&L that your client's going to be really happy with. As mentioned, these entries, of course, being focused and generated off of the payout information coming from the channel, are going to perfectly one-click reconcile inside of those accounting solutions, which is awesome. We have lots of accountants and sellers who come to us doing entries at the end of each month, not super consistent and kind of looking in the rearview mirror. And we're going to basically get you a lot more real-time data, get you that P&L with increased visibility and information that you and your clients can trust. And it's not just us that you have to take a word for it. You can check out our App Store reviews through Xero, through QuickBooks, again, through that accounting partner community you guys will soon be a part of. We're really, really lucky to have a ton of support in that space. So let's jump right on in here. So welcome to A2X. I've pulled up a demo profile for a Shopify seller feeding into QuickBooks. If we have time, I'll pivot over and show you guys Amazon here as well. But for the core focus here, when we think about getting a new client connected, we're going to come down, create new account, and we're selecting whichever selling channel we want to connect to. So in this case, I've done this for Shopify, and then our first two steps are very simple. We're just installing as an app in their accounting system. So in this case, through QuickBooks. We then install as an app again through their selling channel, in this case, Shopify. So once we have those data sources connected, we can monitor bank feeds. We can look at the chart of accounts. We can then see all the reporting coming in from Shopify. Our next step is to dive into our mappings page. And this is step 3, the account and tax mapping process. And keep in mind, as you kind of come across this mappings page for the first time, it can be a lot of information. Partner program, you guys get one-to-one onboarding. So these are 60-minute calls to run through the entire setup process for any of your clients. And there's no limit to how many of those you can have. So you can absolutely tackle sales and fees rec in one call and then move on to cost of goods sold setup in a second call a few weeks later. It's totally doable. So as we come to our mappings page here, what we're looking at is basically the list of transactions we're pulling out of the selling channel. So in this case for Shopify, I can see I'm looking at things like discounts, refunds, sales, shipping income, payment and selling fees, gateway transactions. Those are things like PayPal, Klarna, Afterpay, Sezzle, Stripe, all the fun pieces there. So we capture all of those different transaction types. And at this top level, we're then just connecting these across to a destination account in QBO. So I've connected, in this case, my discounts to a sales, refunds to refunds, sales to sales, shipping to shipping, payment and selling fees to a Shopify fees account. Pretty simple stuff. This particular account we're in has used our auto setup function in the top left corner. So if you're working with a client who maybe doesn't have the most robust chart of accounts, you're maybe bringing them into a tool like QuickBooks or Xero for the first time, we can absolutely pre-populate a set of accounts we're looking for and take a lot of the manual work out of that, which is fantastic. So this is just the top level of our mappings page. This is strictly looking at our transaction type and mapping it to an account destination. But things can get a lot more complex and a lot more granular from here. So if I click on all, now what we're looking at are still those auto mapping categories at the top, which kind of develop a rule for each transaction type. So I still have all my discounts, my refunds. And if I come down to sales, what I'm now seeing are the individual transaction names in this middle column. And then really important in this right-hand side, if I scroll back up, this is our marketplace column. This is going to vary depending on each client. For Shopify, this is where we could see things like Shopify POS locations. This is where, for the social media savvy sellers, we could see a TikTok store or a Facebook or Instagram or Fair for any B2B work. As long as those tools are connected and pushing order data into Shopify, we can pick those up as individual marketplaces here. And then what that can let you do from a P&L and a mappings perspective is if I come up to filter by marketplace, and I say, okay, I know what's happening through my core Shopify online store, but let me drill into one of these marketplaces. Let me hover over. Okay, it looks like that's the Shop app. So that's kind of the Shopify app rewards program that some sellers participate in. So what we can now do is from all these transaction types coming in through the Shop app, if the seller wants those split out into their own set of accounts on the P&L, we can absolutely do that. And same would hold for TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, etc., all those other different marketplaces. So that kind of lays the foundation. This is kind of like the rule book we build out as we then look to filter and apply and yeah, deliver a really clean, accurate P&L. There's lots more we can get into here. We don't really have time in kind of this format. But settings, sales grouping, and tracking, we can do things like build out product types to kind of further split sales information. For Shopify, we can do things like breakout sales by state, province level, etc. We can even bring in things like order tags for some really cool B2B stuff as well. So if any of this is just scratching the itch, definitely follow up. I'll give you guys some contact info to dive in for a deeper demo in a little bit. So once we've built out this mappings foundation and this mappings rulebook, the next thing becomes, okay, well, let's now start looking at our payouts. So I've come over to our posting screen in the top corner here, and I can see down the left-hand side my date ranges for the payouts. I can see which payment processor they're coming from, and I can see my payout totals. So just to shout out really quickly, payment processors like PayPal, Afterpay, Klarna, etc. The piece of information that's missing as part of their puzzle that Shopify doesn't capture is what these services have charged sellers and fees. So again, we can go a lot deeper in a one-to-one demo on these, but the Coles Notes version is what we do is during your mapping and onboarding call, we're going to look to see what payment gateways a seller has active in Shopify. We're going to build out an AR clearing account for each of them. And then once per month, we're going to have to pull an invoice from the payment gateway provider like PayPal, grab the fees out of the invoice, and then manually tie things out on that clearing account. But it's not rocket science, and we do have direct integrations now with PayPal and hopefully more of those payment processors to come in the future. If we turn our attention back to Shopify payments, I can see here on the left-hand side my date ranges for the payouts. So we'll crack here into this big one, September 18 to 22nd, Shopify payments for just over 15,000. Quick shout out in the top left corner here. That raw data file is what I mentioned at the very beginning, and this is what has all of the order and transaction information broken out into it. So this is really important for any folks in the UK. MTD, making tax digital requirements. This is how we're able to attach the raw order and data information into these entries to be compliant in that part of the world, which is fantastic. If we look down the left-hand side, I can see my different transaction types. I can see my dollar amounts. I can see the account we're impacting. When I hop over to show you guys Amazon here in 2 seconds, we'll go to a UK profile so you can see this VAT and tax column come into play. This particular account is not leveraging that just based on its region. But yeah, definitely a big piece there. So once we've said, okay, payout for 15,000, A2X has followed our mappings list to a T. I can see all my different sale type transactions split out here. I can see my discounts, right? All the fees, taxes, etc. We're now ready to send this entry across into QuickBooks. And we can automate this. You don't have to come down and click on it each time. But here's an example, right? I can see here's a payout that actually came through from Amazon for just over 57,000. We found the matching entry here from A2X automatically. So that's our superpower with us treating these payouts as their source of truth and as their own North Star. So I can one-click match, But for total bonus points, we'll crack open our journal. And I can see in this case, this is an Amazon example, so they tend to be a little bit thicker, a little bit beefier with all the FBA fees and things like that. But accounts we're impacting, our debits, our credits, the transaction names as we saw them on our mappings page. And as we scroll down to the bottom here, there's that settlement report TXT file tucked away with all that raw order data. So this is kind of problem number one that we solve, is automating entries into the bank feed for one-click reconciliation, which is wonderful. We're going to dive into a couple other example entries just to talk through a couple of scenarios that happen, and then we'll pivot over to look at Amazon UK here for 2 seconds. So a lot of people will say, well, David, tell me about payouts that start in one month and end in another, with Shopify dispersing every day, but the payouts being 3 and 4 days, with Amazon paying out every 2 weeks. What does A2X do in that scenario? So here's an example where we have a payout that just clipped the final little bit of August in the first couple of days of September. So what we've recognized, of course, is this is a single payout from Shopify for just over 15,000, but we've actually needed to reference back to order date. And so we're now looking for August and for September out of this raw data file. In this case, we are recognizing just over 11,900 for the month of August, and then we have a $3,500 entry to reconcile here. Again, super simple in this case, not a ton of complexity in this entry from Shopify. So what happens now is we basically will send across two entries over into QuickBooks. And if we open up those entries, you can see here's one that's come in, and we've actually debited 11,957.87 as a carry forward balance. So this is the entry that spans 30th of August to the 3rd of September. So we've debited this carried forward balance here. And then if we come over to its sibling entry for September 1 to September 3, can then see there I'm crediting that same carried balances account from that data from August to make sure everything is being recognized in the correct month. So that's a process we adhere to across all the channels. We want to make sure everything's being recorded in the correct month, which is fantastic. Okay, so that's the sales and fees rec overview of A2X at a really, really high level. The next thing I want to jump into is cost of goods sold. So if you think about what A2X is doing, we're pulling in this really powerful data file with all that transaction information in it to deliver this split and to kind of break everything out. But the next obvious thing we can pull out of this data file is a breakdown of what products are being sold. So in this case, we've enabled cost of goods sold here in A2X. I can now see down the left-hand side, here's the list of all of the SKUs. These are all the products that have dropped in as part of this payout. I then have a breakdown of how many of each have been sold. So these first two columns are all coming from our data file. This unit cost column we're going to get into in 2 seconds, because this can basically be synced in from a couple different sources depending on whatever channel the client is using. But once we have it, all our tool is doing is we're multiplying across, adding it all up, and then we're just making the dollar value entry from inventory asset to cost of goods sold expense. At this point, we're not passing through any of these inventory quantities into QuickBooks or zero. There is zero tracked inventory for a very small percentage of users where we do have a potential workaround for that. But again, if that rings a bell for any of your clients, book a one-to-one demo. We'll give you a better run through on how that functionality comes together. Okay, awesome. So where does this cost data come from? Great question. If we come up to the very top and I click on this cost page, this then brings up our little cost of goods sold module. And again, we've been speaking about Shopify for this particular demo up till this point. So for a Shopify seller, the easiest place for us to bring in this SKU and cost data is directly from the client's products page. So that's really the dream, because we can have the client keep that information up to date. They can re-average their costs monthly, quarterly, whatever makes sense for their business. And then we will obviously pick up that list of SKUs, the cost data that's being entered, and make those corresponding COGS entries from there. If it's a Walmart, eBay, Etsy seller, any of those other channels we support, that is where bringing in a cloud CSV file. So this could be something like a Google Sheet. Bringing in something like that. Again, 2 columns. Column A is SKU, column B is average cost per SKU will be sufficient. And if your client is already using a dedicated inventory tool, we have integrations with 2 of them right now, Finale and Settle. We can basically bring in their better calculated cost data that gets you closer into a landed cost, which is fantastic. Regardless of which which cost source this client is leveraging, we do then, of course, track cost history. So you can see we're tracking zero cost, missing cost, total SKUs, and that basically lets us run back and kind of make sure all the cost data is being updated and communicated properly back into A2X, which is fantastic. Okay, let's pivot over to look at Amazon UK for 2 seconds because I want to show you what the deep end of our mappings page can look like in a more complex environment. So here we are again on the left-hand side. I'm in an Amazon account. In this case, we've connected to Zero, but it works the exact same way. We're installed as an app in both locations. So if we come to our mappings page now, this is a Amazon UK Great Britain based seller, but they obviously have marketplace activity happening in a bunch of other regions. So I can see that's where this country column starts to come in. So I can see this particular seller has indicated they are primarily registered in Great Britain. They're also doing some EU activity and some non-EU activity. And this marketplace column is kind of what populates as we look to dive a level deeper into the mappings here. But you can see in this case, right, I have tax on sales, no tax. I can come in here, look at all my different VAT ratings and kind of make sure these transactions according to country are all being mapped appropriately. Once I click on all, this marketplace column for Amazon is going to shout out co-UK versus Germany versus Spain versus France. So for a North American seller, this is where you'd see .com versus CA versus Mexico. So that's the one thing that's really important when you're thinking about where your Amazon clients are active. We will pick up North America as one bucket. We will pick up the UK and Europe as a second bucket, and then we will pick up the Middle East, APAC, rest of world as a third bucket. And so that there is now what's letting us understand from a individual marketplace level in a country. You can then again get very specific from a VAT perspective and very specific from a mappings perspective. If I hop in here, for example, and say, you know what, just show me the activity that's happening in Spain, I can then see all my different promotions, reimbursement, sales, FBA fees, marketplace facilitator taxes. All of that data is, of course, surfaced in here. So hopefully that scratches the itch for a couple of our UK EU folks that deal with a little bit more complexity in their selling world. Okay, tip of the iceberg again, everyone. We have some fantastic reporting here in A2X, but if you're interested, FBA inventory reporting, Shopify reconciliation reports for month end, if kind of understanding the full breadth of what A2X can do is of interest, we will get you a little link here and some information on how to get in touch with us for a demo. Okay, fantastic. So one of the last things we're going to touch base on before we pivot and just wrap up is our pricing. So how our pricing works is we're generally going to look at how many channels are we connecting, how much history does the client need brought in for any cleanup work, and what sort of order volume average are we looking at in a month. So if we start off just by looking at Shopify pricing, the same philosophy holds across all the different channels. You can see right away for Fit, I have a single Shopify store or I have up to 5 Shopify stores, depending on how many brands the client has. If we look at something like this $45 a month basic plan, this is going to bring in 6 months of history for Fetch. So if the client says, well, I need you guys to wind back 12 months, all that would mean is for month one, you'd have to be in a higher end pro plan, which would let us fetch 12 months of history. And then from there, as soon as we complete that fetch, you can then downgrade into this $45 plan if that fits their kind of average order volume. We're always adjusting plan fit based on the last 90 days. So we look in the rearview mirror for 3 months, we determine the average number of orders, and then from there they can upgrade during busy seasons and be downgraded in the off season. What's fantastic about our partner program, as I mentioned earlier, is no matter what, even if your first couple of clients are in these mini and basic plans, you're still getting the premium one-to-one support and premium onboarding of these higher end plans no matter what. So that ties back into first principles benefits of the partner program, which is fantastic. If you then say to me, David, it's not just a single channel, it's not just Shopify, it's not just Amazon. The client I'm looking at A2X for is selling across multiple channels. That's no problem. We can either stack together a bunch of these smaller plans depending on the order volume for the client, or we can pivot over to look at multi-channel pricing. And that's where we're saying 2 selling channels. So this could be Amazon for North America and Shopify. This could be Amazon North America and Amazon UK EU, right? Knowing that there's that little region split to worry about from Amazon's perspective. but 2 channels, 3 channels, 4, 5, etc. You can also, again, stack multiple of these plans together. If you have clients that have a really high amount of channel complexity, we can stack a single plan on top of a multi. It's all totally doable. So from here, again, we're looking at number of selling channels we're connecting and then combined average order volumes. So yeah, happy to kind of walk you guys through this in greater detail on a one-to-one demo, because obviously pricing just varies by client, by volume, and what sort of history needs they'll have. But hopefully that gives you a good general overview of how this all comes together. So just as a quick recap, why A2X? Really, it's our commitment to automation and accuracy. We've been doing this for 13 plus years. We're really lucky to have one of the best support teams in the world. Can absolutely dive into our App Store reviews through QuickBooks and Xero to learn a little bit more and see what our customers are saying. It's pretty incredible, the team that we work with here. And then, as I mentioned, it's that deep partnership with our accounting channel, and that's really what the partner program is all about. I think something like 1,500 accounting partners are registered with us, and we bring a good cohort of them into Canada every fall for a good event called Camp A2X. So yeah, we'd love long term for that to be kind of a goal for any new partners coming on to join us, is to be a part of that community. So, quick shout out here for accountants. Become a partner. That is basically submitting a form to join the program. Really only relevant when you have a client that's ready to go, and that'll make sure you qualify in for all the one-to-one support. You can absolutely book a demo. That'll come back to myself, my colleague Matt, or my colleague Aaron. All three of us here are on this demo calendar. So if there's stuff we just kind of brushed on that you want a little bit deeper of a look into, please feel free to grab some time with us. If you just have some like specific questions and you don't need to carve out some full time for a full demo, you can absolutely also reach out to us at contact@a2xaccounting.com. This is monitored by a whole bunch of our team members, so you'll get a response from there really quickly. But guys, hopefully that's been a useful overview of A2X and also our accounting and bookkeeping partner program. Again, contact at A2X Accounting or hop onto our website for accountants, book a demo to circle back to keep the conversation going. Thank you, everyone, so much. Have a fantastic week.